Hi, everyone, and welcome to Making Social Media Work for You. I am Julia Becker-Collins. I am the Chief Operating Officer here at Vision Advertising, and I am super excited to be chatting with you today about social media for business. So let's kick things off here. So first, let's get going, and I can tell you a little bit about myself. So here is all my contact information. And one of the reasons I always give my contact information specifically in this webinar is because one of the questions that always comes up is, how do you differentiate between your personal social media channels and your professional social media channels? If you have chosen to separate the two, if you have one for just, your home life and your friends and photos of you and your dog, et cetera, versus your business, sometimes it gets confusing what to share on different channels. So I always offer up my social media channels as examples. So like I said, I am the Chief Operating Officer of Vision Advertising. I have been with the agency for 4.5 years. You are welcome to reach out to me on any of these social media platforms. I won the Worcester Business Journal 40 Under 40 Award in 2019. And I have, I want to say 15, 17 years of experience at this point. We usually just say 15 plus years. Prior to joining Vision Advertising, I was working in nonprofits in Boston and also in other corporate agencies doing marketing, event planning, fundraising, and people management. So I have led large and small teams of people, and I have a really rich history in operations and creating systems and processes along with marketing itself. So moving on, let's talk a little bit about who Vision Advertising is. So we were founded in 1999, and we really are a full service marketing agency. We like to say that if it smells like marketing, we can do it. I was actually on a call this morning with a woman, and she was running through a whole checklist of different services that her new company needs. And she was saying that she hadn't had any conversations with agencies yet where they could really do everything that they were looking for. And we were the first agency she had chatted with that offered all of those services, which was great. We are 100% women owned and women run, and we are certified by the state as a women business enterprise. We were named a top 10 communications and ad firm by the Worcester Business Journal 2018, 2019, and 2020. And just a couple of achievements for our clients to give you a sense of what it's like to work with us. For 1 year, one client, they had 4.3 million Facebook views. And the average increase for social media engagement for our clients after they come on board with us is 323%. So that gives you a little bit of flavor for who we are as an organization and as a company to work with. So let's keep going. So one of the things I always like to start out with when I have these conversations and when I give these presentations and in the before times, workshops in person, I like to really run through the basics of social media for business. And what do I mean by that? I mean social media with the purpose of marketing your business, not social media for fun and being on there as an individual. They're two very different things. So let's be sure to think about this as social media for business. So a lot of times what happens is that people think they need to be on every single platform, and they need to be on every hot new platform, and they need to be everywhere. But one of the things you really need to think about is, how do you pair your business and your needs and your goals with which social media platforms are best for you? So I like to think about this as matchmaking. Each social media network really does come with a different size and shape, its own ability to reach people, its own user demographics. It has its own pluses and minuses, and we're going to go through some of those today. And there's really no one size fits all technique, strategy, or plan. What you really need to do is know who your ideal client is, and we're going to talk about that, and determine what platform they are most likely spending their time on, so that you know where they are most likely to make their buying decisions, and then you can invest your time, your money, and your expertise, which are your 3 resources, into that platform or those platforms. And if you're using more than one platform, you want to be sure that you're speaking the language appropriate to that platform. So a really quick example of that is you could be on Instagram and Facebook, which is great. A lot of businesses do that. And you can share posts from Instagram to Facebook. And I'm sure you've seen that as a consumer. But then what happens a lot of times is that when you share from Instagram to Facebook, that's it. That's all that happens. And nobody is then going into the Facebook post and customizing it to make sure it really speaks to the Facebook audience versus the Instagram audience. And that can appear like the Facebook audience is an afterthought. And that's really not what you want that audience to feel like. So what's an example of that? An example of that is when you see posts that have all of the hashtags at the end on Facebook, or they're, tagging people in the post, which is obviously something that's coming from Instagram, and it wasn't converted over to really much more of a Facebook post. Sharing from Instagram to Facebook really can save you a ton of time, and it's fantastic. And there's content that works really well on both platforms. However, my strong recommendation is to invest that additional 1 to 2 minutes. And then once you post on both platforms, go into Facebook and really customize that message for the Facebook audience. Take out those hashtags, tag appropriately on Facebook, and then make it actually look like a Facebook post. Okay, so that's just a quick example. So let's talk about ideal client profile. So this is something that I stress all of the time. If you have heard me speak in the past, if you have been to my webinars, if you have read my blog posts, this is something that I just beat over and over and over again. This is the drum I'm always beating. So ideal client profile is this term that sounds like this big fancy pants MBA term that you're going to learn at Harvard. But I am here to tell you that it is a super understandable term that everyone in business needs to understand. It's not just for marketing, it's for sales, it's for every part of your business. And really what it means is, who are you selling to now? Who do you want to be selling to? And who is that person? So let's walk through that. So if you are currently running a business, if your business is already up and running and you're trying to make more money, you want to do more marketing, etc., in your business, who are you currently selling to? And I mean on average, right? So if you're selling to Melissa in Wisconsin and you're selling through online orders, and she's white and she's in her 40s and she has 3 kids and a dog, but she's divorced and maybe getting married for a second time. I'm being really hyper specific for a reason, because you want to know who's currently buying your products or services. So that's an example of who's currently buying your products or services. Okay, so of these current customers, which have the highest ROI? ROI is return on investment. Again, another term that sounds like a fancy pants MBA term, but it is something you really need to know. Return on investment is an area where you can figure out how much money and how much you are getting back from the efforts you're putting forth. Most people think about return on investment having to do with dollars and cents. And I really agree with that, but I think there's more to it. It's not just how much money are you making, it's what's your emotional ROI. Because we have all had those clients where you make a lot of money, right? The bottom line is good, it's primo, but this client is not appreciating your boundaries. They're calling you at 10 p.m. on a Friday when your office hours end at 7 p.m. They are difficult, they want everything, they don't respect your staff, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, only you can decide if that client is worth it, right? Because at different stages in your business, you're going to have different needs about financials. So I can say that in our business, we do not want a client who is a very difficult emotional ROI. We want clients that really appreciate the work that we do. They want to partner on everything with us. They're excited about the ideas we bring to the table. They work with us because they see the expertise we bring and they want to follow as we lead, right? And I would rather work with somebody that has a lower price point per month and it has a lower contracted rate with us, but is really a higher emotional ROI. And that's where our business is. But that's something you really have to decide. So when you think about this ideal client profile and you think about these current customers and you're thinking about this ROI, think not only about how much money you're making. And when I say that, I mean income, I mean revenue up above and beyond your costs. Think about your emotional ROI. So have an idea in your head of this person. It could be a cartoon character, it could be anything, right? Or an example of a real customer you work with. Now, separate from the people who currently buy your products and services and those that have a high ROI, who could be buying your products or services? So not just those that currently do it, those that could be doing it. Again, create the idea of the person in your mind. It could be a cartoon character. It could be a real person. You could, find a Google image and make that person the person you always think about selling to. Anything that is like a trick that works for you. But you really need to dive deep on the demographics of the person, the household or individual income of the person, their interests, the family structure. Where do they make buying decisions? Are they an impulse buyer or do they think more about things, et cetera, et cetera. Really get an idea in your head of the person you're selling to. So an example I always use is selling sweaters, because sweaters are very, objective. Here in New England, we all need sweaters. It's cold, it's gonna snow tomorrow, which is crazy. So we all need sweaters and we all buy sweaters. So if you're selling sweaters, what is your differentiating factor? What makes you unique in the marketplace? Okay, so you are selling allergen friendly, made in the USA sweaters made on a farm. I'm just creating things in my head right now. And your ideal client who you could be selling to is, again, a white woman, and she's in San Francisco and she does do impulse purchases and she has family on the East Coast and, she doesn't have kids and she's in her 30s and she's in tech. And I'm diving really deep on this because you really need an idea in your head. And be clear with yourself and really understand that you can sell to people beyond this. It's more so that you can laser focus on the type of person you want to be marketing to. Because otherwise you're going to be doing spaghetti marketing, which is where you throw things against the wall and you see what sticks. And that is not a great use of your time or your money or your expertise. Okay. So when you figure out, okay, this is my ideal client profile, here is who they are, here's what they look like, here's how much money they make and their interests and their family structure and kind of all these things about them. And then I always say, speak their language. What do I mean by that? I mean, are they in their 40s and they don't understand what extra means in the way that millennials say it? Okay, so if they don't understand what that means, then don't use that terminology. Use terminology that this person is going to understand. Whereas if you are trying to sell to millennials, use the terminology that they are going to understand. So there's a URL at the bottom of this slide that will take you to a blog on the Vision Advertising website that has much more information about identifying your ideal client profile. And I really recommend you go to that and do a deep dive over there if you're interested in more information. So let's move on. So let's talk about Facebook. And I'm sure if you're like me, you have a love-hate relationship with Facebook. Facebook is really great until it's not. Facebook is fantastic for very specific things. Facebook is really, really good at groups. Facebook is amazing at these groups they've put together. It's a great way of networking. It's a great way of meeting new people, of finding sales leads, of meeting people with a common interest from you. Facebook is great at events. So whether it's your kid's birthday party or a webinar you're producing for your business or a conference you want to go to or a restaurant opening, Facebook is unparalleled in events. It's just a fantastic platform for that. Their Messenger app is really fantastic. So you can go from a conversation in a group where you're discussing a sales opportunity to a Messenger conversation without leaving the platform, and you don't have to give out your phone number if you're not feeling comfortable about it. Those are all great things. It is frustrating when it comes to marketing as a business because they've really structured it as a pay-to-play model. And I'm sure you've seen that, you have 5,000 people liking your page, but only 3 people are seeing your posts. And that is on purpose because they really want you to pay to boost your posts because they are a business. Don't forget that Facebook is in business to make money. And you might not like it, but that's the reality of the situation. And I always like to remind people that Facebook can be incredibly frustrating, but if you use it to your advantage, there's a lot of tools there. The other part of it is that if you submit, problems or inquiries to Facebook and then you never hear back and you get frustrated, the other thing to keep in mind is that Facebook as a company is literally the size of a country. And I want to say that again. Facebook as a company is the actual size in terms of people and money as a country, which is why they're not getting back to you all the time, because it's just going into an algorithm. That's not to say you can't get support. So through the Facebook Business Manager app, which if you have a Facebook business page, you can have free access to a Facebook Business Manager profile. So if you go to business.facebook.com, you have free access to a Facebook Business Manager profile if you already have a business page. And then there is an entire help and support portal, which sometimes, depending on the updates they run, gives you access to live chat with Facebook. And that can often give you more support than just submitting a claim or trying to figure something out. Okay? So let's talk about the demographics of who is on Facebook, because we just had a conversation a couple of minutes ago about ideal client profile and trying to figure out where the people that you're trying to market to and you're trying to sell to are on social media. And so how do you figure that out? You need to know who is on each different platform. So let's talk about the demographics of who is on Facebook. And while we talk about the demographics of who is on each platform, be sure to keep in your brain that ideal client profile that we just created, okay? So Facebook is more female than male, but it still is very popular with both. It is more urban than rural, but still very popular in the suburban communities. Excuse me. It skews higher for those that have college and beyond education, but that is primarily because it also skews older. And so if you look at this slide, you'll see that it is much more popular with those over 30 than those in the 13 to 17 bracket. And so what happens a lot of times with Facebook is that because it's not the new hot kid on the block, it gets, news programs come out saying, Facebook is dead and it's not a great platform anymore and it's really shrinking and all these things. I actually had a conversation with a client once that they told me that they saw on the news that Facebook was no longer a viable social media platform, so they didn't want to market there anymore. And what I always want to remind people is that Facebook has been around the longest, and it might not be growing as fast as other platforms, but that's because it's so large to begin with. It only has so much to grow at this point, and it's not going anywhere. The areas in which it is growing is with an older, air quotes, population. I say older, being in that older category. It's not growing with your middle school and high school kids. It's not growing even as much with college, but they're on there. It's growing with people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, etc., because that is the platform that we were all used to, and that's the platform we continue to go to. But there are plenty of, I say kids, but young adults that are even, college age, that are interning for me, that don't even have a Facebook account. So this is where you need to think about your ideal client profile so that you can think about who you're trying to sell to and market to, and make decisions about, is this the best platform for you to invest your time, money, and expertise? Because if you are trying to sell to 14-year-olds, Facebook is not a great platform for you. But if you are trying to sell to women in their 50s, go for it, okay? So let's keep going. So let's talk about Instagram. So Instagram is different, very different than Facebook. I think they get linked together because now they are both owned by Facebook and they're both so incredibly popular. But Instagram has a lot of different capabilities and a lot of the same capabilities as Facebook. Instagram is very photo heavy. And when I say that, I mean that literally everything has a photo. You cannot post on Instagram unless it has a visual aspect to it. The whole idea behind Instagram originally was that it's instant, Instagram, instant, so taken in the moment. You can only post in that moment. And so for a very long time, you couldn't schedule out posts on Instagram because they wanted it to be in the moment, photos with commentary. It's supposed to be incredibly visual. The platform has progressed and grown to allow scheduling in a very limited capacity. You can do comments, there's video, there's Instagram Live, there's stories. Facebook also has stories, but Instagram really has much more popular stories, and it's a better tool in general. Instagram can be shared to Facebook, but it can't be done the other way around. You can't share Facebook to Instagram. Instagram stories can be shared to Facebook if you link the two accounts. So if you have an Instagram business account and you have a Facebook business account, I really recommend linking the two. And then you can have your Instagram stories auto share to your Facebook account, because some people just really prefer stories over the posts, especially since 2020. So since the pandemic began, Instagram stories have grown in popularity exponentially. In general, social media has grown exponentially since the pandemic because we're all at home. And so there is just so much more time being spent on social media. You have so much more of a captive audience than you have before, which is a blessing in that you can reach so many more people, but it's also that a curse in that if a mistake is made or something is said, everybody will hear it and everybody will see it. So it's just, you have so many more eyes and ears on you than you used to have before. So it is a great opportunity. Instagram stories are part of that opportunity because people are at home and they want to be entertained, but they don't want to make a heavy time or emotional investment. And since Instagram stories are quick snippets that auto rotate and are only live for 24 hours, people want to stay engaged with their favorite page or person's stories so they consistently rotate through them. So I always, always, always recommend that that Instagram business pages commit to posting to their stories every day that they are posting to their page as well, because the story is just another opportunity to get eyeballs on your content. And we're going to have on the Vision Advertising Facebook page, we're going to have a webinar, I think in a couple months, where we do a much deeper dive on Instagram. So I really invite you to attend that. So let's talk about the demographics on Instagram. And to be clear, this is from, I believe, a year or two ago, pre-pandemic. So just keep in mind that these very large numbers are before the huge spike in activity I was talking about. So like it says here, for starters, general Instagram users include 35% of all US adults. This is higher now, with 1 billion with a B monthly active users and 500 million daily active users every single day. And this about stories, again, is from, I believe, 2 years ago. So the stories feature boasts 400 million daily active users. The data hasn't aggregated yet for the past 12 months, but I'm sure it will be up shortly. In terms of the demographics of who is on the platform, it skews more female than male, but there are still a lot of men on Instagram. It is more about the age range. It skews younger rather than older. So whereas Facebook skewed older, Instagram skews younger. Okay, so, but you're still getting that sweet spot in the middle there of people, you know, somewhat 30 to 49, 18 to 29, you're definitely capturing, and you're definitely capturing the younger generation there. So if you are trying to market to a woman who is 33 years old and you have a very visual product, again, such as those sweaters, this is a great platform for you. If you're trying to market those sweaters to a woman who's 25, again, great platform. If you have a product, not a service, but a product that is visual, this is a fantastic platform. If you are trying to sell it to a younger demographic, usually female. If you have a service that you are trying to sell to a younger demographic, usually female, this is great for promoting the culture of your company, a behind the scenes, who works at the company, what it's like, because people buy from people. You're not necessarily going to have as much success selling the service because it is hard to make an impulse purchase of a service versus a product. A product is something you can touch, you can feel, you can order with a click. A service is almost like buying air. They have to trust you in what you're buying. So it's more of an emotional purchase. That's harder to do through Instagram, but you can still gain trust as they learn about your business. If you are selling a service to an older demographic, this can still be helpful to be on if you are trying to show the culture of your company because you want to do recruitment. We as a company don't market our services on Instagram. We really just market our culture. We use it to show how we're different than other marketing agencies. We show the different webinars and seminars that we're offering. We use it to show behind the scenes. We use it to market when we have internship opportunities and job openings. And we really try to show what else is going on with our company, because we don't see it as a great platform to be able to sell a 12-month contract for marketing, because that's not how people are purchasing them. They're not going to make that buying decision here, but they are going to be interested in who you are as a company. Okay, so let's move on. So let's talk about Twitter. So what happens, I think, a lot of times is that if you have a product or service or a business that is going to be really perfect for Facebook or Instagram, or maybe both, you then think, okay, I should be on all of the big four. And what do I mean by the big four? I mean Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. And so suddenly you're posting on all four. It happens all of the time. And maybe you're sitting there going, yep, Julia, I am definitely doing that. I'm posting on Twitter about sweaters and I don't really know what I'm supposed to be saying. And this is where you need to think about, is this platform right for you based on the demographic and based on what this platform is meant to do? So Twitter is great if you want to show the expertise of who you are as a company, who you are as a professional, and the kind of conversation you can have around that. For example, we have a client that's a professional IT services provider. They go into a very large company and they take over all the IT service management, and they make sure everybody has really secure computers and Microsoft access and, security checkpoints throughout the building, et cetera, et cetera. So they're on Twitter because they want to show expertise in the industry in terms of all the changing trends. They're not trying to sell their services, they're just trying to be a part of a conversation. That's a great use of the platform. Twitter is very fast. Twitter is based on a conversation. You can't just, it does not work. It's not that you can't just. It doesn't really work on Twitter to set it and forget it. Twitter is, like I said, like a conversation. So if you just tweet out into the world and you schedule a tweet and then you don't follow it up or you don't engage in any other conversations, it'd be like walking into a crowded room, screaming a non sequitur and leaving. It doesn't make sense to anybody. You're interrupting the conversation and nobody wants to participate. So Twitter only works if you're going to invest the time in the conversation. And if you have something that you're trying to sell or market that needs to have a conversation. So if you're selling custom fine jewelry, do you need to have a conversation about it on Twitter? Not necessarily. I would think the only reason you might is if there's a controversy about diamonds or the gold that you're sourcing and you really want to come out as the expert and you want to invest the time in that. Okay, so let's look at some demographic data. So Twitter is one of the only platforms that has a very even split between women and men. It also, in terms of age, actually has much more of a bell curve in that it skews into the middle age ranges. It's more popular with those in their late 20s and 30 to 49. It's more popular in urban and suburban areas than in rural areas. And it is more popular the more money you make. And maybe that has to do with the fact that it is more of a conversation space, or maybe it has to do with access to smartphones, etc. It is more popular the higher your education level, etc. So let's keep going. Now, as a reminder, you want to kind of have that idea of the ideal client profile in your head of who you are trying to market to and sell to while we have this conversation. So the last of the big four is LinkedIn. And I actually, this is going to be an unpopular opinion, I actually think that LinkedIn is not the same as the others. I don't think of LinkedIn as a social media platform in the same way. I would almost say it's not a social media platform, but I'm sure a lot of people out there would disagree with me. LinkedIn is much more of a professional platform for job searching, professional development opportunities, showing authority in your field, etc., for networking. If anything, LinkedIn is a professional social media networking site. That does not mean that it is great for you to spend your time, money, and expertise trying to figure out how to market your business on LinkedIn so that you can sell to the professionals on there, because that's not what it's built for. I think it's marketed like that because they're trying to make money. It is very expensive, very, very expensive to market, to do boosted ads on LinkedIn. But what really works on LinkedIn is participating in conversations, spending about maybe an hour a day on there. Again, the time that you spend, and seeing what people are posting in terms of opportunities. I'm looking for podcast guests for my podcast. Are you interested? Well, that's marketing. So you need to spend the time to have that conversation. And are you prepared to be on a podcast? And is that going to work for you, et cetera, et cetera? Or if you're looking to switch jobs, or you're looking for a vendor for an event, or et cetera, et cetera. LinkedIn is fantastic for all those things. It is not fantastic if you really want to sell to Wall Street brokers and they're on LinkedIn. That's not helpful. It's, if you're trying to sell sweaters to Wall Street brokers, you don't want to be advertising on LinkedIn. But if you're trying to have conversations about, the new blockchain service that you're offering, that's a place where you could start conversations, but I would not recommend that you spend dollars on boosted posts there. So let's look at some demographic information. This has a very even split between women and men. It really has that bell curve again, but it does have a large amount of people in that 18 to 29 range, probably because they're job hunting. Really almost nobody in that over 65 range because they're out of the job market. Again, this is very career focused, much more urban than rural, and much more high income than low income, and much more, college degree and up than high school degree or less, because this is so focused on career. Okay, so let's keep going. So let's talk about professional account management, which I like to call don't have your teenager manage your Facebook business page. And I say that because I've had that question asked of me before. So my 15-year-old has a Facebook page. Can't he manage my Facebook business page? As an intern, wouldn't that work? And my response is always, how would you feel if he responds to negative feedback? Does he know what to do? And the answer is almost always no. So if you're not comfortable with somebody knowing how to manage negative feedback or a negative review or deal with a crisis, then you shouldn't have them manage your professional account, your business account for any social media platform, okay? You need to manage your social media platforms like an asset. If you don't manage them like an asset, they won't pay you back like an asset. If you don't prioritize them, then they won't reimburse you with dividends, okay? So what does account management mean? It means prioritizing your social media management, not leaving it to the last minute, not leaving it to an afterthought. It means that you're actually thinking about your social media accounts as things that require thought in advance. It means that you want to invest the time and the money in setting things up the right way the first time. And it means that you know that it can really help you to do things correctly for the public persona of your business on social media. Okay, so let's dive into that a little bit more. So professional account management has 5 areas. And obviously there is more details to this, and we're doing a high level overview, but these are the 5 areas that are really the most important to pay attention to. So scheduling. Scheduling out social media posts can really help you with your time management. So if you've decided that you want to be on Facebook and Instagram because that's where your ideal client is, and you can commit to posting every weekday on both platforms, and you know that you want to be posting about the sale you have coming up for the red turtleneck sweaters. I'm just pulling things out here. So then what you need to do is make sure that you are scheduling time in your schedule to sit down every week or every 2 weeks and write out the posts, put together the visuals, and literally schedule it in the platform. Facebook Business Manager has a built-in scheduler. Facebook Creator Studio is the scheduler for Instagram. Again, if you link that business Instagram account to your Facebook business account, you can use Creator Studio. It is 100% free and available to you. You could also be scheduling with something like Hootsuite or Later.com. All of these tools are at your disposal, but scheduling will help you make sure that you're not forgetting to post when you have 500 things to do, and social media is going to be the thing you remember at 11 o'clock at night when you're going through your to-do list when you should be sleeping. This way it's just happening. Responding to things. So you don't want to set it and forget it. When you're scheduling out your time to work on social media, so maybe you're doing it at 11 p.m. or 9 p.m. on a Friday night or on a Sunday night with a glass of wine, and you're committed to 2 hours of work a week, and that is great. You also want to schedule out 10, 15, 20 minutes a day or every day that you have posts going up to make sure that you're responding to the comments on your posts. What happens a lot of times is people schedule out their posts in advance and then they don't respond to any comments. Well, some people don't respond to any comments at all. And then as a consumer or a potential client, you feel like you're shouting into the void and suddenly you're not as excited about the brand that you just commented on the photo of. Or what happens is they don't respond for 5 to 7 days because that's when they're back online. And that person has suddenly lost interest because people have such short attention spans. So it's a very small commitment on your part of making sure you sign on once a day to respond to comments, but you really want to be doing it every day. And you really want to be responding to every single comment. Even if it's just somebody saying, oh my God, I love this photo, you want to say, thank you so much. And the other reason for doing this beyond making sure people feel heard is because the more comments on your posts, the higher level of engagement you have. And engagement always breeds momentum. And that is how you grow a social media page. So the more comments, the better, the more likes, the more shares, et cetera, et cetera. And so engagement breeds more engagement, which breeds momentum, okay? So the third is advertising. Advertising is when you invest actual dollars and cents into your social media. You don't have to do this, but if you choose to do this, you should have a budget, which is number 4. You should sit down and say, okay, I'm going to spend $300 this month or whatever it is. And then that is your actual number. Instead of looking at your posts and saying, well, I think I'll put $25 behind this. And maybe you're sitting there listening to me and going, yep, I have 100% done that before. This way, at least you have a sense of, I have set aside this amount of dollars this month. So I'm very comfortable spending this money and I have a plan for it. And so I feel like it's an investment of my money rather than not being sure if it's going to do anything. Okay. The advertising needs to be scheduled out. So you're like, this post is going to be great. I am marketing this webinar I'm doing with this other, partner. I'm really excited. And the more people I get there, the higher chance I have of getting this grant. Fantastic. Then put some dollars and cents behind that and let's see how it goes. So schedule out the advertising and make sure you have the money budgeted. And then asset management. Asset management is that you have created a structure to manage your assets. What do I mean by that? Assets are your photos, your video, your content that you need in order to do your social media posts. Using Instagram as an example, it requires you to have visuals. Well, you need those visuals and you need to be able to post everything or schedule everything. So where does it all get stored? So instead of searching on your phone for a photo, create a cloud folder. Could be as easy as creating a free Dropbox account and then uploading the photos you want to use so that you always have access to them. Dropbox has a free app for your phone. And then that way you can go in and be like, okay, it is the 3rd week of October and I know that these are the photos I want to use because I spent an hour last month organizing my photos and these are the photos I want. So you have already set aside the time to organize your assets. You have prioritized the management of your assets and you're not banking on the fact that your phone will survive. You've backed up your assets because your photos and your video need to be managed just like anything else in your company because they are a public representation of your company. So let's keep going. So we talked about engagement. You heard me really stress the importance of that. One of the best ways to do that is really through scheduling and responding. So I really, again, encourage you to set up your Facebook Business Manager account. It is completely free. Again, business.facebook.com. I do not get a kickback from Facebook. I really wish I did, but they will walk you through the entire process of setting up this page, and it will give you far more tools to managing your professional Facebook page than just logging in through facebook.com. It will give you access to the Creator Studio for Instagram. It will give you access to an ad account. It will help you budget, will help you schedule, etc. So I really recommend that you take advantage of that tool. So we talked about assets a little bit before. You also want to make sure that you're collecting assets for your account. I had a question in a webinar earlier this week about how do you encourage your clients to make sure that they are sending you the assets? How do you tell your client if you are working at an agency, or if you are the marketing person at a company and you're trying to do the marketing for your landscape company, and you can't get the people on the ground to send you the photos that you need, how do you get them to do it? And how do you collect those assets and organize those assets? So one of the best things you can be doing is giving people hard deadlines and telling them exactly what you need. So I think what happens a lot is that we say to our clients, or we say to the people in our company that we need these photos and videos from, hey, Johnny, I really need some photos today while you're out. It'd be great if you could send those to me. Yeah, I'll get those to you. And then you don't get any photos. And then you're annoyed and you don't understand why you didn't get them. And maybe you're sitting there going, yes, Julia, this happens to me all the time. How do I fix this? So there's a couple great ways to fix this. One is you need to be hyper specific. Johnny, can you send me 3 photos by text today by end of business? How many photos? That it's photos, not video. Give them a deadline. And then tell them why. Johnny, can I have 3 photos? Can you really send me 3 photos by end of business today? I need them for the Facebook and Instagram account because we're running a contest. And the CEO asked me to have that up for tomorrow. Right? Like, give them a hard line of why. Because I think what happens most of the time is people don't understand the ramifications. And they don't understand why you need things. And in general, as human beings, if things aren't specific, we tend to ignore them because we don't understand them. But the more specific the thing is, then you feel like you can accomplish it for somebody because you were told exactly what they need. So if you're asking the people in your restaurant to send you photos of the food from the back so you can use it on your Instagram account, tell them exactly what you need. Rather than, hey, can you take some photos during dinner service today? Say, can you send me 5 photos, text it to me by end of business today. I need to use them tomorrow for fill in the blank here. Be hyper specific. It'll be incredibly helpful to you. So talk to your staff about that if you are working with other people. Now, if it's just you and you're trying to do it yourself, I would say give yourself the same deadlines. Why do you need them? What do you need them for? Remind yourself, you know what, today I'm going to do 5 photos because I need them for next week's Instagram scheduling, and I'm going to save them to Dropbox. Be more specific with your own goals around them, and then you will be sure to get what you need when you're doing your task list that day. Okay? So we're going to wrap things up very shortly. But just as a reminder, social media works for you when you know who you're speaking to, such as your ideal client profile, you know what language to speak, you know where they'll hear you, you know what platform they're on, and you make the tools work for you in terms of using every aspect available to you, such as Facebook Business Manager. You manage the platforms as an asset. You manage social media as an asset of your business. Make sure your audience feels heard and that you respond to those comments. You respond to any inquiries, and you put your money where your mouth is in that you budget for any advertising in advance because you know it's an investment for your business. So we're going to wrap up the presentation and we will take some questions after we end the recording. Thank you so much for joining me today. This was great.